Sounds like Christmas.
Bought something. Let's see what happens. This guy upgraded to a Power Color Fighter RX 6650 XT. Only a little bit faster than what Jalen recently got. You can check that out here. But that's not what's in the box. Luckily it fit. Ooh, it's just cold. Ooh, and dusty. Wow, what a bitch. Alright, that jerk. It's a dusty ass card. Okay, well this has obviously been running for 8 years because that's when the Radeon 300 series came out, 2015. So this, according to what I deduced from the sticker on the back, is an R9 390X, 8 gig. So an R9 390X is really just a 290X. It's the same core, but with 50 extra megahertz on the core. Slightly better memory as well. So it's essentially the same thing as AMD's flagship from 2013, so over 10 years ago. And this is the WindForce version, but oh my gosh. And there's no sticker on the screw, so it's been taken apart before, but definitely couldn't be to clean it before, you know, you sent it off to me. I just did a video about cleaning an R9 380. I don't have to do a 390 now. Dang it. It's so dusty. So I'm going to be comparing this to a few cards and in some modern games. 8 gigs of VRAM, that's, I mean, I guess more of a minimum of today, but it has base DirectX 12 support and Vulkan support, which should be enough. However, newer games won't have the updated drivers to where it's like meant to play anything new. This is an old card, over 7 years old, between 7 and 10 years old if you want to count it being the same thing as an R9 290X. But I want to see how this performs. So this isn't just going to be a little clean, which it desperately needs. I'm going to double check whoever sent this to me, and I'm putting them on my naughty list. Because this is ridiculous. Now I got this for 40 bucks, maybe that wasn't enough incentive for them to give an F. Now these cards are, or at least were notorious because back then Nvidia still had the crown. These were hot and loud. Hopefully with the WindForce version, it's not so bad. Hopefully it can do more than just sit on my wall. So this is the best GCN2 card, I believe, other than if you want to count a 295X2. Oh no, I might need new thermal pads. I don't have any. Oh yeah, okay. Look at that! That's
Watch
up! Who did this to you? Oh, these dust bunnies are duplicating. Invasive species. There it is. Okay, cool. Big GPU die, much bigger than I was expecting. There's that, and then this one is gonna pull out the entire header straight off the board. You know what? Oh no! Then I pulled out one of the wires. Oh, but that sucks. I just damaged it. I mean, unless it was already damaged. Who knows? Yeah, the images did not show how bad condition this card was, and that was on purpose. I mean, even though it didn't have a sticker, this application looks pretty factory, at least to me. I do want this card looking good as new. Now, because this is an older AMD card, and those, at least from this series and around this time period, did run hot and loud, depending on the model, I definitely wouldn't have gotten a reference version with a blower style cooler. You need something that can actually handle the kind of heat this is pushing, which is about, I think, 275 watts if I'm remembering correctly. I'm actually curious about undervolting this thing just really hard, because I also just don't want to draw 300 watts for something that won't even deliver very good performance anymore. So especially if you're worried about power draw or heat output. Cards like these people use to like mine and stuff. Oh god, no. Someone could have been mining on this. As long as they run those undervolted, that shouldn't be an issue either though. We'll take a look back at this once the rest of the cooler has been cleaned. I thought this would be an in and out 15-minute adventure, but nah. At least this side of the heatsink is coming along. Just don't look at the other side. I also want to do more testing just to see. Oh god, why did I turn it around? Oh, it was looking so good. Look at that. Shiny. Blech. There's a thick layer of dust on each fan blade. Can you tell which is which? Now that she's mostly cleaned up, I can test the R9 390X against the RX 590, Polaris's best offering. as well as the beloved GTX 970 and GTX 1060. Similar performance range and time frame, hailing from the mid-2010s. And lastly, an OEM RX 5300. If you've never heard of this, I don't blame you. It's the same core as the 5500 XT, with a lower TDP, narrower memory bus, and only 3GB but of GDDR6. All of these cards are within the same performance bracket, but I'll also be undervolting the R9 390X down to 900 millivolts, the lowest Radeon software will let me go. More on the undervolting stuff later. The software I had couldn't suggest the power draw of this card. It probably doesn't have that functionality built into this old series, but I can imagine it's significantly less. I tested these 5 cards in Valheim medium settings without anti-aliasing at 1080p on both DirectX 11 and Vulkan. I imagine Vulkan to be more performant, at least on newer cards, but it seems that, at least from these tests, DirectX is a better option on this game. In Cyberpunk 2077's built-in benchmark on low settings 1080p on DirectX 12, the R9 390X was even faster than the 1060, but as you can see, frame times were inconsistent. But while undervolted, it's still better than the 970. Lastly, I tested Hogwarts Legacy on both low and medium settings at 1080p on DirectX 12. On low, all these cards are essentially the same, with the RX 590 taking a decent lead, and on medium, the R9 390X stays up with the 1060, though it isn't an incredibly enjoyable experience anyway. You need a bit more GPU power or lower settings for a game like this. Finally, here's the 3-game average, or all 5 graphs averaged. The best Polaris card leads this chart, and while it's not a particularly amazing card, it still leads over the popular GTX 1060 6GB, both of which manage just over 60 FPS on average with reasonable minimums. Surprisingly, the R9 390X keeps up, even though it's incredibly less efficient than everything else here. The once powerful GTX 970 is just behind, but still playable, the obvious shortcoming being that 3.5GB VRAM threshold. And I was expecting more out of the RX 5300. It was the slowest card, and while being very power efficient, consuming the least power of anything else here, though the 1060 is close, it's not enough for newer or more demanding titles. Older stuff, it'll probably be great though. Finally, undervolting the R9 390X was a little bit of hell. I didn't just undervolt a little, I turned the voltage sliders on the Radeon software all the way down. Now hold on, you can't just do that, you'll crash. Undervolting is the opposite of overclocking. You know, when you turn up the clock speed, you lose stability, so you need to add voltage. But that increases heat and power output. So when we want to lower the heat and power output, we turn down the voltage, but that decreases stability. So we have fun figuring out what the highest stable voltage is on whichever card you have, because this will vary. On my R9 390X, I was able to get 775 MHz on 900 millivolts. Not very impressive, but you know, you get what you can. And you can tinker this to get the most stable curve you're going for. You can really dive into it, but it takes a long time. A lot of crashing. And doing this made the load temps more in line with the rest of these cards, rather than just a hot mess. And lower temps can prolong the lifespan of hardware, especially this older stuff. I don't know the history of this thing, but it's probably been through enough. There is an obvious performance drop with undervolting, and while it's well under 60 FPS and shouldn't be considered acceptable, this card was good back in the early 2010s, so if those are game titles you're interested, this could be an acceptable secondary system GPU, as long as you do the undervolting thing. Other than that, this card is ancient, and probably should just stay away from it. That's about it. Like, subscribe, bye.